Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 246. Without any delay, start explanation. Naturally, there was a reason that so few were queuing at windows number 1, 2, and 3. The Blood God armies used a credit system based on military gallantry. For the most part, a meal from window number 1 was equal to the military gallantry acquired through a low-intensity battle. To put it simply, the cost of a meal from window number 1 was enough to promote a private third class to a private second class. Even though later promotion required a huge amount of gallantry, one could imagine how expensive the food supplied from window number 1 was. "Boy, what are you doing?" Jiang Wuyue furiously asked. Tang Wulin turned his head to the side to look at him with an innocent expression. He replied, "Sir, I thought you said that I could have anything that I like." Jiang Wuyue's imposing manner wavered. "It's true that I said that you can have anything you like, but don't waste the food. Don't you know that greed and wastefulness are the biggest sins in life?" Seeming sincere, Tang Wulin immediately answered, "Don't worry, sir. I'll never let the food go to waste. Can you finish all of this? Let me remind you that every meal from window number 1 has a heaven and earth spirit item. It's exceedingly nutritious, so there's no way you can eat so much. You can't digest the food even if you're capable of eating it all. Aren't you afraid that you'll die from overeating?" Tang Wulin spoke with a smile. "Sir, why don't we do this? We make another bet. If I can eat all of this, then the next meal. ****. Did I say I wanted to bet you? Back off." Jiang Wuyue sounded slightly agitated. A faint voice came from window number 1. "Goods sold are not refundable. Battalion Commander Jiang, please pay up. You're the one who said you conceded defeat." Jiang Wuyue's lips twitched. He still needed an extremely large amount of military gallantry to be promoted from a lieutenant colonel to colonel. He had already been accumulating his gallantry for over a year, but he still had 2/3 to go. In this single meal, 1/10 of his gallantry had been spent, so it was no wonder that he was regretting his decision. Meanwhile, Tang Wulin could not be bothered with him anymore as he stood at the window and began eating in huge gulps. He had no idea what the ingredients used for the food were, but he could certainly tell that the taste was absolutely amazing. It was no less scrumptious than the food teacher Mu Yi made. There was a dish made of extremely tender and juicy pheasant. It was so good it made Tang Wulin feel like eating his own tongue. Jiang Wuyue suppressed the pain in his heart and paid the bill. Just as he turned around and fumingly looked back at Tang Wulin, the irate expression on his face froze instantly. This was because 3 sets of dishes from window number 1 had already disappeared in the time it took him to pay the bill. Tang Wulin was working hard on the 4th set now. A huge bowl of snow spirit bird's broth was made from an entire snow spirit bird. Jiang Wusue watched as Tang Wulin put the whole leg into his mouth and spat out the bone in the next moment. A bowl of soup had vanished completely within a few breaths. He appeared to be eating fast but kept his manners entirely intact. Seeing him eat, it was as if Tang Wulin was on an assembly line. As Jiang Wusue stood there dazed, another set was finished. Watching the scene from a distance, Jiang Qiue and Long Yushue were both similarly stunned. Is the boy reincarnated from a soul that died in a famine? I can't afford to provide for him when he eats like this, no matter how good-looking he is, right? Jiang Qiue gulped. Long Yushue's lips cracked into a contemplative smile. If I'm not mistaken, I recall that someone else placed a bet earlier as well. Do you have enough military gallantry? You can always borrow from me if you're short. I thought you just mentioned earlier that I'm not supposed to break the rules. As it is, I guess I'll charge you 100% monthly interest. Don't do that, Yushue. Jiang Qiue screamed out in agony. I'm about to go broke. Don't do it. I've already been collecting my military gallantry for a long time in order to be promoted to major. Oh my God. Where did you find such a monster? What am I going to do? Yushue, you must help me, or else please help me beg for mercy from him. You're the one who brought him in anyway. Long Yushue shrugged. The evil we bring on ourselves is the hardest to bear. I can't help you when you're the one asking for trouble. Jiang Wuyue's mouth was already agape as he witnessed Tang Wulin eat all 10 sets of dishes from window number 1. He then watched Tang Wulin walk to window number 1 and asked the chef inside, "Do you still have more?" "No, that's all we have for today," said the head chef inside the canteen. Jiang Wuyue could not stop himself from asking, "You're still hungry?" Tang Wulin walked to window number 2, saying, "I suppose I can make do with number 2. It had been a long time since he feasted so heartily, but the feast today was truly decadent. He did not want to bankrupt Jiang Wuyue, but he truly could not stop himself from eating. The food was fantastic in quality as well as quantity. He felt as the lethargy he had been suffering from recently was swept away. His entire body finally felt at ease and contented. Moreover, the blood essence vortex in his chest was already spinning at its highest speed. There seemed to be faint glittering light shimmering in the very center of its core. It was just the right time for him to replenish a large amount of energy. He had almost finished digesting all of the food that he had just consumed. Tang Wulin feasted on a dozen meals from window number 2 before he stopped. He cracked a toothy grin at Jiang Wuyue, whose face had already turned the color of mud. "Thank you, sir." Jiang Wuyue stood there dumbstruck, watching him depart. Tang Wulin greeted Jiang Qiue and Long Yushue before leaving the canteen and returning to his quarters. A soldier's room was not very well furnished. It was 10 square meters with a very simple washroom. However, Tang Wulin was quite satisfied, as he had a room to himself. That was at least better than sharing a room with someone else. "Guu, what do I do when I can't get in touch with you?" Tang Wulin was feeling slightly anxious. He could not possibly wait for 4 years until he was promoted to the rank of major. In order to accumulate gallantry to move up the military's ranks, Tang Wulin would first need to figure out the basics of their scoring system in the special training for the following month. He sat cross-legged on his bed and meditated. He would need to seize every opportunity he could to cultivate painstakingly. He could possess a 100,000-year soul ring as soon as he had broken through to rank 60, so his cultivation base would undoubtedly ascend to a whole new level. Tang Wulin's fight with Mo Mai that day made his own inadequacies clear to him. His strength was enough, but he still had a lot of room for growth when it came to converting it into speed. He would need to improve on that, or else his strength, though incredible, would be wasted if it was ineffective against the enemy. While Tang Wulin was meditating, a total of 12 people was watching a screen in Operation Room Number 3 inside the Blood God Army's command post. The screen was displaying Tang Wulin's climb up Sky End Mountain. Long Yushue was there as well. She was standing behind, while the rest of the people sitting there were at the rank of senior colonel or higher. Seated at the front were 2 generals with stars pinned to their uniforms. These generals were men who appeared to be over 40 years of age. One of them was huge and muscular, with thick brows and large eyes. He had a handsome and dignified appearance as he sat there exuding an air of grandeur. The person by his side was a tall and slim man. He appeared to be 60% similar to Long Yushue, so it was apparent that he was related to her. "Pretty impressive physical capabilities there," the Major General with the well-built physique said with a deep voice. Long Yushue spoke, "Yes, I've examined the data." It took a total of 8 days from when he entered Sky End Mountain to arriving at the barracks. There was no sign of him using his soul power or martial soul. However what? The Major General that looked very similar to her asked. Long Yushue answered, "However, he seemed to possess an unusual kind of strength. I think it originates from his bloodline. Generals, both of you can take a look at the footage from his test to witness how he displays the strength later. It's very peculiar but also extremely powerful." The burly Major General burst out laughing. "That's impressive. The person is truly of good stock to be appraised by Little Shui as such. All right, let's take a look at his assessment exercise then." Long Yushue came forward to switch the channel. Shadows flashed once on the screen, which then displayed the scene of her and Tang Wulin entering the simulated world. Long Qianwu took a glance at his daughter with a peculiar expression on his face. He had heard from his wife about how his daughter personally brought along this new recruit for his test and gave him the highest valuation. Only the new recruit with the highest valuation deserved their attention. They personally watched the test recording so they could determine the rank for the new recruit. The scene began to change as Long Yuxue and Tang Wulin leaped into the abyss and entered the cavern. Tang Wulin walked in front with the iron rod in his hand while his eyes were shimmering with purple radiance occasionally. He was chosen and sent over by Tang sect, but was from Shrek Academy originally. Seems like he's a survivor from Shrek Academy. Long Qianwu squinted his eyes. I think so. Xu Weitao nodded. I didn't expect that Shrek would be completely annihilated. I'm afraid that our people who originated from Shrek would be out of control if not for our suppression of the news. It seems like the continent is no longer peaceful. Long Qianwu nodded. It's highly suspect and not as simple as it looks. I think it's related to the military. Our regimental commander is on his way to the army headquarters, so we'll wait for him to brief us on the situation when he's back. I hope that the army headquarters will not get involved or it'll be a big disappointment. How could they kill Atlas Doluo? Xu Weitao sighed once. Some people think that the current Duluos are powerful enough. On the other hand, Shrek Academy's neutral stance draws resentment from those who are overly ambitious. We can't just leave this matter as it is. We'll wait for the regimental commander to make the final decision then. The scene had begun to change as the two major generals were conversing with each other. Long Qianwu made a bewildered sound because he saw the scene where Long Yuxue was suddenly running toward the middle cavern. Was not the difficulty of the assessment fabricated? They then watched as Tang Wulin's figure followed closely behind Long Yuxue. He waved the long rod up and down continuously to kill the 4-clawed bats in succession. His close-quarter combat is very impressive when he used the Tang sect's Ghost Shadow perplexing track. Moreover, he's calm and steady. It's quite impressive for a 21-year-old to do this. His strength is exceedingly powerful that he can rely on an iron rod to defeat so many 4-clawed bats easily. He did it all without any reinforcements or equipment, so he has at least a second-class private's attributes. Long Yuxue did not utter a word. The scene changed and a 6-clawed bat had crawled its way out and pounced on Tang Wulin. Long Qianwu and Xu Weitao's gazes turned serious. The 6-clawed bat was more than 10 times stronger than the 4-clawed bat, especially when it was equipped with the ability to launch sonic attacks. The sound waves once caused a lot of trouble for the Blood God army. A close-range attack was highly distressing in many cases. In the next moment, Long Qianwu stiffened a little because he witnessed Tang Wulin holding Long Yuxue in his arms when he defeated the 6-clawed bat. Long Yuxue's charming face blushed as she explained, his spiritual power is exceedingly powerful. He used his spiritual power to protect me such that I wouldn't be struck by the sound waves. Long Qianwu did not speak. A man capable of relying on pure strength to kill a 6-clawed bat was definitely considered an elite amongst the new recruits. What followed after made them change their views drastically. Witnessing 3 6-clawed bats being killed by Tang Wulin, the officers, behind the two generals, were shifting in their seats. The voices of their discussion sounded as one. Soon after, Tang Wulin fell and brought Long Yuxue down together with him. However, by using a sophisticated feet positioning technique and terrifying strength, Tang Wulin managed to kick the giant serpent away. The scene caused the two major generals to jump to their feet. Beautiful. Bian? How did a Bian appear there? This test is too difficult, isn't it? What a waste. I was hoping to see how long this young boy would last. Long Qianwu and Xu Weitao frowned as they sat in the front row and watched a giant claw appear. Gentlemen, the test has not ended yet, Long Yuxue could not refrain herself from saying. Not ended yet? That was a Bian. Later, they witnessed the scene where Tang Wulin suppressed Bian by force. It was a collision of pure strength alone. Yet, what was happening with that golden soul ring? The entire operations room was in complete silence when Bian was pinned against the stone wall by the golden dragon spear. He did not use his martial soul nor soul power, but he still managed to kill Bian. He did not even use his battle armor or mecha. He relied purely on his strength. Could it be related to his bloodline's strength possibly? He deserved a higher accolade than genius. Very few amongst the group of people who were present, including the senior colonels, could achieve such a victory. Extraordinary, Chu Weitao spoke in a deep voice. Mo Mai? Long Qianwu suddenly stood up because the scene had yet to end. A Mo Mai appeared in the scene. In the next scene, Tang Wulin fought hard against the Mo Mai and used his body to shield Long Yuxue. The enthusiasm of the audience in the operations room was evoked once again. Early morning the next day. It was still pitch dark outside when Tang Wulin awakened from his meditation. The day was shorter than the night over here. He gazed at the frozen and snow-covered land outside and sensed the warm, comforting temperature in the room. Tang Wulin found it relaxing to his surprise. The heavy burden on his shoulders felt lighter when he was far away from the clamor of the inner continent. Although he had not completely forgotten his worries, at least he did not need to be stressed out. His first impression of the Blood God Army was good. The amorous Doluo certainly had his reasons to send Tang Wulin here. His main purpose was to work hard on elevating his power and achieve a certain military rank in the army. There was no doubt that the Blood God Army was not as influenced by the Federation. It was an autonomous world here. Although it was not as neutral as Shrek Academy, the army was highly qualified. As to why the Blood God Army was stationed here, the amorous Doluo did not tell, so Tang Wulin would need to find out by himself. The feast from last night had an impressive effect. He felt full of vigor while his blood essence power was elevated. Tang Wulin stood up and stretched his body. After a brief wash-up, he walked out from his room and went outside. The temperature of Sky-End Mountains in the early morning was extremely low. Even Tang Wulin could not help shivering. He was already dressed in a white military uniform. The well-ironed military uniform fitted him well and complemented his slim figure with a stalwart appearance. He moved his body about slightly. Was he going to begin his special training today? He wondered what the agenda would be today. With his prior experience from the training on the Demon Island, he did not worry about how tough the Blood God Army's special training would be. What else could be more physically and mentally tormenting than the Demon Island? He could not see the sky clearly as the air was filled with snow mist blowing in the sky. What a waste that his martial soul was not of ice attribute. Otherwise, he could be cultivating here to yield twice the result with half the effort. Tang Wulin. A sweet voice was heard at this moment. Tang Wulin turned around and saw Long Yuxue. "You early. Do you live here too?" Long Yuxue shook her head. "No, I don't live here. I'm here to see you. Your test grade has been dispatched. Please follow me to receive your military rank after breakfast. At the same time, your assignment will be announced." "Yes?" Tang Wulin thumped his right hand against his chest and gave Long Yuxue the Blood God Army's military salutation. Long Yuxue took a step forward. She then used her left hand to support his elbow while her right hand shifted the position of his arm. It should be in this position. Your fist is placed slightly higher above your heart. Do you understand? Understood. Have your breakfast first. Oh right, Chiyue has pleaded for mercy from you. At this point, even Long Yuxue was amused by the situation as she recalled Jiang Chiyue's piteous look while she implored for sympathy. She could not help feeling entertained by the prank because she did not expect Chiyue to land herself in such a situation. "Oh. All right, then I'll just order one set," Tang Wulin spoke. "How did you manage to eat so much?" Long Yuxue could not refrain herself from asking. Tang Wulin spoke, I'm blessed with having a good appetite, I guess. However, I can eat less. There's no need for me to eat so much each time. However, eating more is helpful to my cultivation." Long Yuxue took a glance at him in surprise. She nodded and spoke, "Cultivating by eating? I bet that's related to your bloodline ability, right?" Tang Wulin's chest tightened, but he did not deny it. On the contrary, he nodded. He met Jiang Chiyue during breakfast, only that she was no longer as lively as yesterday. Her hair was pleated into two little braids that made her appear as the girl next door with a piteous expression on her face. Tang Wulin could not help laughing in his heart. How could she think that he would not see through her disguise? What else had he not seen from the 7 old demons on the demon island? However, he could not be bothered with her. "Good morning, senior officer." Tang Wulin saluted Jiang Qiue. Jiang Qiue hastily said, "We're all in the same unit. Call me Pausy, you don't have to address me as senior officer. We're not in the middle of a mission. Just call me by my name." "Handsome, take a look at this." Tang Wulin said, "I'll have something simple, as at window number 6. One is enough. I ate a lot last night, and I feel like I haven't digested it completely." "Really?" Jiang Qiue's big eyes brightened up. Then, she looked at Long Yushue beside her with a grateful expression. Long Yushue said, "This has nothing to do with me." He agreed to it. Jiang Qiue immediately hugged Tang Wulin's arm in a bout of excitement. "Thank you so much." Her body was far more developed than the average person's. Tang Wulin could feel her buxom body coming into contact with his own. He could not help but smile wryly. He broke the contact seamlessly and said, "It's nothing. Yesterday was just for fun. I humbly ask the senior officer to teach and guide me in the future." Jiang Qiue's gaze flickered. How could she not have noticed Tang Wulin's clever move in breaking the physical contact between them? After they had their breakfast, Long Yushue brought Tang Wulin to the Blood God Army's command post. The commissioning ceremony would be held here. It was the rule of the Blood God Army. The Blood God Army's command post was neat and simple. There were no decorations and it looked just as cold as the snow outside. The commissioning ceremony would be held in a small hall that could fit about 100 people. When Tang Wulin followed Long Yushue into the hall, a dozen people were already seated below the stage. Their epaulets shone like dazzling starlight. At first glance, there were 2 generals. The others were officers above the rank of colonel. Tang Wulin noticed that these people looked at him with curious gazes. Of course, he had an inkling that it was related to the use of his bloodline power during the assessment. However, Tang Wulin thought nothing of it. Since the assessment did not allow the participant to use soul power and soul skills, it must have been designed to assess the soldier's other qualities. For example, the protection of one's comrades. He had undergone the Demon Islands training before. When Long Yushue told him to protect her, Tang Wulin surmised that was probably the objective of the assessment. In the end, he had to use his bloodline power. Naturally, he had his reasons for doing so. He did not hold back because he wanted to fit in with the army as soon as possible. Displaying his strength was undoubtedly the best way to do so. The attention he received today was within his expectations. Long Yushue made Tang Wulin stand on the side. She then walked up to the few officers and saluted them while standing at attention. Secret Service Deputy Chief reporting. "I have brought the new recruit Tang Wulin. Awaiting further instructions." Long Qianwu said, "Begin." "Understood." Long Yushue turned around and said to Tang Wulin, "I now invite the new recruit Tang Wulin to ascend the stage to be commissioned." Tang Wulin walked to the center of the stage. He faced the officers and hammered his chest with his right hand. He saluted them in accordance to the convention of the Blood God Army. Long Qianwu then stood up and walked over to him. Nearby, Long Yushue came over with a tray. 2 epaulets were placed alongside 2 golden collar patches on the tray. A bar and a star. "Second Lieutenant?" When Tang Wulin saw the rank, he was shocked. "I thought I was only going to be a private." In his opinion, with his performance during the assessment, he could have been commissioned as a first-class private. Least of all, he had not expected to be commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant. The 3 ranks of a private were corporal, sergeant, and first-class sergeant. Then came the rank of 2nd lieutenant. The significant difference between a private and a lieutenant was that even a first-class sergeant was still not considered an officer. However, a 2nd lieutenant was definitely a full-fledged military officer. It was an incredible feat for him to be commissioned as an officer the moment he joined the army. A higher entry point meant that his chances of further promotion would be better. Long Jianwu said to Tang Wulin, we've seen your assessments recording and thought that your performance was outstanding. You've truly shocked us for being able to display such combat strength without utilizing your soul power. According to the Blood God Army's rules, an outstanding new recruit can be given the rank of a first-class sergeant. However, based on your excellent performance, the Army decides to make an exception and award you the rank of a 2nd Lieutenant. I hope that you'll keep up the good work and accomplish further merits. Long Jianwu personally attached the rank insignia on him. The well-ironed white military uniform appeared different with the addition of the military rank. Tang Wulin looked incredibly heroic. 2nd Lieutenant Tang Wulin, you're assigned to the Secret Service as a staff officer. You'll immediately assume your duties after a month of special training. From this moment on, Tang Wulin was the Secret Service's staff officer, 2nd Lieutenant Tang Wulin. It also meant that he had finally joined the Federal Army to be a soldier officially, a military officer to be exact. A whole new world has opened up for him. Staff Officer 2nd Lieutenant? What were the duties of this post? Tang Wulin truly had no idea. However, he decided to take things as they came. He was sure that he would be given his duties soon enough in the following month. Since he was in the Secret Service, the Deputy Chief Long Yushue would be considered his colleague. The commissioning ceremony ended. Long Yushue brought Tang Wulin along, and they left the command post. Senior Officer, is my special training commencing after this? Asked Tang Wulin. Long Yushue nodded, I'm your special training instructor for this whole month. You'll be following the schedule I set for you throughout the training. First off, I'll give you some classes on theoretical knowledge. Contrary to Tang Wulin's expectations, Long Yushue did not bring him to any sort of classroom. Instead, they went into a dorm room that resembled an apartment. No matter his view, it seemed identical to the place where Long Yushue lived. Sit, this is my dorm, said Long Yushue magnanimously. Tang Wulin did not ask further. He sat down on the living room sofa. Long Yushue said, you're the only new recruit we have. Hence, there's no need to go out of our way to find a place. Please remember everything I'm about to tell you. Yes, Senior Officer. Long Yushue glanced at him, there's no one else here. You can call me by my name. We'll be colleagues after this. Won't it be inappropriate? Tang Wulin glanced at her. Long Yushue made a cold face and lowered her voice, this is an order. Very well then. Long Yushue said, you must be curious why there's an army at this location, endless mountains. The terrain is tough and unforgiving. The living conditions are harsh. Am I right? Tang Wulin nodded. The endless mountains was the westernmost part of the continent. On a map, one would notice the west coast could be reached quickly after traversing the endless mountains. The west coast was also the most desolate place on the entire continent because of the barrier formed by the endless mountains. Beyond the west coast, there was no oceanic soul beast activity or destruction of any kind. There was no human living there at all. In any case, the Blood God Army was still an excellent army. Why was such an excellent army placed here? Tang Wulin was truly curious. When Long Yushue brought this up, he knew that he would finally learn about the army's secret. Long Yushue continued, the Blood God Army was formed 6,300 years ago. So, it has a history of thousands of years. On the continent, there are few who know about our existence. Our soldiers are different from ordinary soldiers. We shoulder heavy responsibilities and go on missions. Generations of the Blood God Army's experts have been silently protecting the entire Doluo all this time. Tang Wulin listened intently. Long Yushue's gaze revealed a disappointing, vague recollection as she continued. The reason why we protect this place is because a great disaster happened at this very spot. You should know that the mountain range we're on did not belong to Doluo continent in the beginning. It was formed by the movement of the tectonic plates when Sun-Moon continent joined with this land. In other words, this land originally belonged to Sun-Moon continent. Then, the two continents collided and merged together. That's how Doluo continent came about, with its surface area which is now twice as big. 10,000 years ago, due to differences in the cultures and ideals, a war broke out. In the end, the continent was unified. Time passed, and the current federation eventually took shape. It's still unknown whether the collision of the two continents created some spatial distortion. A strange spatial tunnel appeared in the endless mountains. To put it simply, another space had connected to where we are. Hence, in the world outside or even in the universe, there are many more planets where there may be various spaces which contain all kinds of living creatures. The appearance of the spatial tunnel may have shortened the distance between the different spaces. Maybe, it connects two spaces which are hundreds of millions of miles apart from each other. Anyone can go from one space to another in a short span of time through this spatial tunnel. Can you understand this? I understand. Tang Wulin nodded. After his experience in the Dragon Valley, he had some level of understanding regarding spaces that were independent of Doluo continent. Long Yushue said, such a tunnel appeared in the endless mountains. At first, it was tiny and the location was isolated, so nobody noticed that it existed. However, with the passage of time, the tunnel increased in size. The creatures from the other world started coming into our Doluo continent. We dubbed them abyssal creatures. Tang Wulin's pupils suddenly contracted to pinpoints. What you're saying is, the creatures I've encountered during my assessment actually exist. Those are the abyssal creatures you've mentioned? Long Yushue replied, you're smart. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. When the abyssal creatures began coming into the endless mountains in great throngs 6,300 years ago and started their migration, there was a great disaster. Because it took place in the secluded western location of the continent where the population is sparse and also the blackout on information by the Federation, there were only a handful of people who knew about it. The purpose of the abyssal creatures is destroying and devouring. They will consume all living things, whether they are animals or plants. Like locusts, they leave behind a barren land wherever they go. They are filled with madness. In just a short amount of time, all life in the endless mountains disappeared. Fortunately, at that time, the Federation's technology already developed to a certain extent, and they found out about the invasion early on. That's how the disaster didn't spread to the inner parts of the continent. The Federation had practically mobilized 2/3 of its armies to eradicate these abyssal creatures. With the combined efforts of Shrek Academy, the Tang Sect, the Spirit Pagoda, and the Battle God Hall, in cooperation with the 11 mecha regiments and countless fixed-soul ammunitions, they eventually managed to push the abyssal creatures back into the tunnel. In the battle, more than 200 people died. The Tang Sect Doluo Hall Master had died during a fight with an abyssal creature's Plain King. 4 of the Shrek 7 monsters of that generation had died. 10 of the Battle God Hall's 18 battle gods had died. 3 of the 4 great spiriters of the Spirit Pagoda had died. Of the 3 main and deputy hall masters, 1 had died while the other was gravely injured. It is said that the battle was absolutely horrifying. Tang Wulin gasped. He could tell how powerful these 4 organizations were from their current strengths. According to Long Yushue, the titled Duluos who participated in the battle must have numbered more than 30. Also, when he counted the years, he calculated that battle armor would have developed during that period in time. Although it was not as powerful as modern battle armor, it would not have been far inferior. If even the Tang Sect's Doluo Hall's Hall Master died in the battle, he could only imagine how powerful the abyssal creatures were. When he thought about Momai, whom he had encountered in the virtual world, Tang Wulin's heart could not help but feel heavy. Our senior's blood wasn't spilled in vain. The abyssal creatures were pushed back to their original plane. 5 of the 7 Emperor-ranked abyssal creatures had died in that battle. The leader of the 7 Abyss Emperors was also gravely injured under the combined might of that generation's Tang Sect Doluo Hall's Master, Shrek Academy's Sea God Pavilion's Master, and the leader of the Shrek 7 monsters. Countless abyssal creatures were killed. After that, the seniors had forcibly sealed the Abyss's tunnel. They weren't able to seal it completely, but abyssal creatures above the rank of king would find it difficult to pass through the tunnel. The Blood God Army was also formed during that time by the 4 organizations. It only had one objective, and that was to guard the tunnel, to never let the abyssal creatures reach the continent again. We have absolutely no idea where the abyssal creatures live, but we know they're extremely powerful. For example, Momai, whom you've encountered, can be regarded as a Lord-ranked abyssal creature. The colossal BAN is only of header rank. Throughout these 6,000 years, the abyssal creatures have always wanted to invade our world. That's why they kept attacking the seal while we're protecting it with all our might. Tang Wulin said, so the military gallantry that's been mentioned can only be earned by battling the abyssal creatures? That's right, Long Yushue continued, the cavern you saw in the assessment was modeled after the Abyss's cave. The scenario created is also highly similar. In the cave, we'd be under the effects of the spatial tunnel's shockwave and our martial souls will be greatly weakened. It's not that we'll be unable to use them, but it's basically the same thing. This is why you could not use your soul power during the assessment. The spatial shielding device created by our current technology only allows soul masters to use their martial souls for a short amount of time. Tang Wulin nodded. I see, so that's why. In other words, after my special training, I'll begin fighting abyssal creatures? The more abyssal creatures I kill, the more military gallantry I can accumulate. Long Yushue nodded. In theory, yes. But you're in the Secret Service, that's slightly different from the combat unit. Tang Wulin said, Senior Officer, then can I be moved to the combat unit? I'd like to fight on the front lines. When she saw Tang Wulin's fighting spirit ablaze, Long Yushue raised her brows slightly. As a female soldier, she did not admire guys who merely had handsome looks, but those that were responsible and strong warriors. Without a doubt, Tang Wulin had all these qualities. During the assessment, all fights were not very different from the real world, especially when he fought Momai in the end. Momai's speed did not even allow him time to think. It was under those conditions that Tang Wulin was still able to protect her with his own body. The endurance of his will to fight was apparent. That was why Long Yushue did not doubt what Tang Wulin had said. No, you're mistaken. Compared to the combat unit, we have more opportunities of coming into contact with abyssal creatures. Do you know what our responsibilities are? Asked Long Yushue. Tang Wulin shook his head. He was at a loss. Long Yushue continued, our main job is to carry out various missions. The other day when you saw me standing guard outside the barracks, I was substituting for one of my friends. Under normal circumstances, that's not our usual job requirement. Our most important task is scouting, to provide information and samples for the research institute. The combat unit has to take turns in fighting the abyssal creatures, and also resupply the unit, among other responsibilities. Moreover, it's not every day that there'll be abyssal creatures venturing over here. The main mission of the combat unit is to guard the abyss tunnel and not let a single abyssal creature pass. We, the Secret Service, are different. Our duty is to gather intelligence. We'll enter the place closest to the spatial tunnel and might even go onto the abyss's plane obtain more information about the abyssal creatures and their living conditions. If we discover a new species and bring back samples of it, it's a very important achievement. Hence, if you want to be promoted quickly, it'll be most suitable for you to stay with the Secret Service for now. Tang Wulin asked with some curiosity, why do you say, for now? Long Yushue replied, up to certain ranks, personal military gallantry is very important. But when you climb high enough in the ranks, especially above the rank of a lieutenant colonel, your leadership ability will also be considered as your merits. It's because the higher-ranking officers must have the ability to command or it'll be impossible for you to be promoted to a higher rank. Even if you are, you'll only be like a foreign official in the army. You won't be able to directly command a unit. Take Jiang Wuyue, for example. He was from the Secret Service. He only transferred to the combat unit after he was promoted to major. He spent 2 years to be commissioned as an officer, hence he accumulated military gallantry at a quick pace. If I ate like you did yesterday, I wouldn't be able to pay. Tang Wulin squinted his eyes slightly and said, you're saying that I better stay in the Secret Service until I'm a major before I transfer to the combat unit? That's right. It's the quickest way to accumulate military gallantry. Of course, not everyone can do that. One must have sufficient strength to be able to carry this out. Your abilities have been tried in the assessment. In the following month, I'll inspect your skills further and assign missions to you. The greatest advantage of our secret service is that, unlike the combat unit, we don't have any general dispatching of forces. We can enter the abyssal tunnel to scout and fight any time. I understand. Tang Wulin nodded. After he had heard Long Yushue's introduction, he finally had a rough understanding of the Blood God Army. Although the existence of the abyssal plane made his heart feel heavy, Tang Wulin also felt like an opportunity had presented itself. When he fought with Ba and absorbed its energy with his golden dragon spear, he clearly felt the boost that the pure energy gave his bloodline. From this experience, it seemed that although the abyssal plane creatures were filled with destructive properties, the energy they contained was extremely pure. After he obtained the energy from his golden dragon spear, he could immediately use them. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for him to devour another creature's life energy through his golden dragon spear to support his own cultivation. He could not do that to a human, and there were no soul beasts around him right now, so that was impossible as well. However, when he was faced with these foul abyssal creatures that wanted to destroy the entire human world, Tang Wulin had no qualms whatsoever. Through his battles with abyssal creatures, he could use his golden dragon spear to devour their energies and harmonize them with his own body. Although it did not have much of an effect on his soul power's cultivation, it greatly enhanced the elevation of his bloodline power. It could even be comparable to eating heaven and earth treasures. Where else would he be able to find such a resource? Given all that, the increased risk that came with being a soldier in the Blood God Army was worth the greater opportunities. From a financial standpoint, if he could fight the abyssal creatures and absorb their energies to replenish himself for a long period of time, he might not even need to consume heaven and earth treasures when he eventually tried to break through the Golden Dragon King's seals in the future. In Tang Wulin's opinion, such conditions were difficult to come by. Every time he tried to break through, he would face extremely high risks. The further he went in unsealing the Golden Dragon King, the greater the dangers. He was completely clueless as to what awaited him after rank 9. He would only truly comprehend the severity of the risks he would face after he attempted to break through the 10th seal. Old Tang had been in a deep slumber. Although he was almost done preparing the heaven and earth treasures to break through the 10th seal and had consumed the velvet skyreach chrysanthemum not long ago, Tang Wulin still worried. After all, this might very well elevate his bloodline power to a whole new rank. At the same time, he was also looking forward to it. It would definitely be most beneficial if he could achieve his objectives by devouring the abyssal creature's energies. The amorous Dolor had truly found him the perfect place. Not only could he gradually obtain the help of the military here, but he could also constantly improve himself here at the same time. The 18 Golden Dragon King seals had helped him reach his current level, but it was also like an axe that constantly hung over his head. Even so, what if he was able to absorb the Golden Dragon King's energy from all 18 seals? What would come of that? The existence of the abyssal plane undoubtedly gave him such an opportunity. The plane was so powerful that the 4 great organizations of the Dolor continent had to fight with all their might and were gravely injured in the process, so Tang Wulin reckoned that the abyssal creatures were legion. Strength. What he needed most right now was strength. What are you thinking about? Long Yu asked suddenly. With that, Tang Wulin finally snapped back to his senses. Nothing. I'm just thinking about how I can fight the abyssal creatures as soon as possible. Long Yushua lowered her voice. I admit that your strength is great, but I must remind you not to be arrogant no matter the circumstances. The abyssal creatures are more terrifying than you imagine. Also, it's different when you're in actual combat compared to when you're in a virtual setting because you won't be able to be revived. Do you understand? Tang Wulin nodded. Long Yushua's expression darkened slightly as she said, I'll explain to you what we know about the abyssal plane, and the general conditions of the various abyssal creatures for now. Long Yushua was a good instructor and gave Tang Wulin detailed descriptions. Tang Wulin also listened intently. He would immediately raise a question when he had one, and she would answer everything. With his deeper understanding of the abyssal plane, Tang Wulin appreciated the greatness of the Blood God Army even more. According to Long Yushue, less than half of the Blood God Army soldiers served for a full 10 years before leaving this place. Mankind's technology was constantly developing, and their experience of fighting the abyssal plane was also increasing. However, they were still unable to avoid casualties. The sudden fall of Shrek Academy was also a great blow to the Blood God Army. The Tang sect and Shrek Academy had been supplying the Blood God Army with a great amount of fresh blood. If they no longer had their reserve force, the Blood God Army would face the risk of dying off in the future. It would also be difficult to predict if they could continue fighting against the abyssal plane. Although the Battle God Hall and the Spirit Pagoda could still send them new recruits, the Blood God Army would eventually be controlled by one of these two organizations, with those being its only sources. This was something that the commanding officers of the Blood God Army did not want to see. This was because the Blood God Army existed to protect the Law continent and not to become anyone's weapon. Tang Wulin also understood that the Blood God Army's equipment seemed to be the most powerful that mankind had. For one to be considered for enlistment in the Blood God Army, one must first increase one's cultivation base to at least 4 rings. Being a 4-ring soul ancestor was a requirement to join the Blood God Army, though even the strictest of sects would not have made such a demand, leave alone the military. Also, the person could not be a mere soul guide master, but a true soul master. In a battle with abyssal creatures, weapons mostly served auxiliary purposes. If one was not powerful enough, it was simply impossible for one to fight continuously. A long-term battle in the high altitude and freezing temperatures of the snowy mountains was extremely trying on a soldier's strength and will. Hence, although it was said that not more than half of the soldiers here could retire after serving a full term, in truth, many of them were actually dismissed because they could not endure the service mentally. Being dismissed was different from being discharged. Military officers discharged from the Blood God Army were definitely top talents that most military commanders would fight over. However, those who were dismissed would not have the right to say that they had served in the Blood God Army before. 10 years was a long time in a person's life. Many people from great families wanted to find ways to enlist their outstanding talents in the Blood God Army. They all had the same objective, and that was to train themselves in these 10 years. If they were able to complete all 10 years of service, then they would most likely become the pillars of their families in the future. Currently, some of the commanding officers in the Federal Army were from the Blood God Army, regardless of whether they were from the Hawk faction or the Dove faction. Although the current federal military minister had not served in the Blood God Army before, his son was a member. Hence, although she did not spell it out, Tang Wulin could read between the lines of Long Yushue's words. The Blood God Army was a cradle for military commanding officers. Of course, this was all under the presumption that one could return to civilization alive. 10 years, huh? Tang Wulin laughed bitterly in his heart. He reckoned that the amorous Dolor sent him here so that he would have enough time to settle himself down. What height would he be able to reach in 10 years? Tang Wulin balled his fists. He set a goal for himself in his heart. In 10 years, he would think of a way to be a commanding officer no matter what. At the same time, he would raise his personal strength to the rank of a title Dolor. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.